Hi, I'm Liz Powell. I'm the founder and head of Women's Health Advocates, as well as G2G Consulting. I'm a lobbyist in Washington. I've been doing this for a long time now, probably 25 years at this point. And every month, the first Wednesday of the month at noon, we do our Women's Health Advocates call open to anyone. We go over legislative updates, what's happening in Washington, as well as advocacy efforts we're working on. I always love to see the chat box light up. So please use that chat box, get to know each other, share LinkedIn's, events, all kinds of things. Each month, I try to give you something new and interesting that will enlighten and inspire you. And today, we have a very special guest who's going to do that. We're going to go over this, but today's guest is the wonderful Wendy Nugent, who is an amazing expert in many things. She's a marketing guru, but she is a guru in registering people to vote and getting them out to vote. That is what she's going to cover with us today. This is actually a side thing, if you can believe it, once you hear all that she's doing. She's a marketing one of the leaders for Hello Heart, which is all about heart disease and is very active on women and heart disease. But on the side, she runs this amazing organization and has had amazing results. So as soon as I found out about it, I said, you have to come and share at least some of this with Women's Health Advocates, because we're all about advocacy and voting, especially in the 2026 election. So would love to pass to you, Wendy, if you could share more about your background and then just share some of what you've been doing. I think this group would be super interested.
Hi, everyone. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much, Liz, for that very warm welcome. I feel slightly undeserved, but I appreciate it. And yeah, today I'm going to talk a little bit more about what I do nights and weekends, running two organizations. So I'm going to share some slides and tell you guys a little bit more about my journey into politics. All right. Um, we can get started. Okay. Um, so first off, I'm based in San Francisco. I'm the founder of two organizations, Asian Americans Rise, which is a political advocacy organization, and Rise Forward Foundation, which is a nonprofit that is registering and getting folks out to vote uh, amongst all communities of color across any strategic election. I've worked in digital health for over 16 years. That's my day job that Liz mentioned. And then I've worked in politics for about a decade. And then last thing I'll say is I started my career at Bain and in private equity. And I mentioned that mainly because I think it has really shaped how we approach things at Rise, which I think is one part strategy, one part investing, and one part marketing. So, a little bit more about how I got started. So, my start in politics happened in 2016, and that's me there with my newborn. And 2016, as you guys know, was a very interesting year in politics. And up until that point, I was just a normal citizen. I showed up and I voted, and I would discuss politics with my friends and family, but that was about it. But in 2016, I realized like I couldn't sit on the sidelines any longer. But I was 7 months pregnant at the time, the summer of 2016. And so going out canvassing in a different state was not an option. Honestly, getting to a phone bank and doing phone banking was hard. And so I decided to use my decades of commercial marketing experience. And I opened up a PAC at that time because I was watching a lot of Stephen Colbert, and he told me it was super easy to open up a PAC. And we started launching digital ads, primarily focused on Florida, because we felt that if we can influence Florida voters, then that was the whole ball game. Um, some folks heard about what I was doing, some VCs, and they added in additional money. We scaled it across seven battleground states. And that was kind of my first foray into politics. And ever since then, I've been doing this type of work, more focused on registration and mobilization, and I can talk a little bit more about that in a second. Okay, before I go into what we have done, I'm going to talk about some lessons that I have learned along the way. And I think lesson number one is elections are decided by the tiniest of margins. And I think everyone kind of intuitively knows this, but I want to put up some stats so folks can get a real sense of it. So in 2020, the presidential election was decided by 43,000 votes. It's not a lot of votes deciding winners and losers back in that election. In 2024, the House majority came down to 7,000 votes. So these are fractions of percentages that are impacting policy, impacting who's in power, impacting our health and our daily lives. But it is coming down to mere fractions. And that has really informed the type of work that we do. Lesson number two. Registration is underfunded, underscaled, and undervalued. And I've been saying this, I think, for about a decade now, but I think more recently it's been recognized and talked about more in kind of mainstream media. Um, there is no national org that is looking at races across the map, centrally deciding where to put resources and getting people to register and get out the vote in that way. It's a network of nonprofits and that are essentially trying to register uh, voters along with some state parties. But because of that disaggregation, you don't have this ability to kind of really look across the map and dedicate resources exactly where it needs to go. And the results are bad. We're not getting enough people into the process of voting. And that's reflected in lots of stats all over the place. Lesson number three, which is, I think, a little controversial, but I have felt that there is way too much money and focus placed on persuasion and not enough around reducing friction in terms of how hard it is to vote. We we vote on a Tuesday. We make people stand in long lines in some places. They have to take time off from work. Anything could happen on that Tuesday that might make it inconvenient to vote. And so the philosophy we've adopted at Rise is make it really simple, make it really easy to participate in voting and civic engagement. And that will show up in the polls and who comes out to vote. Those were some lessons as like a preamble to the work that we've done at Rise. And now I'll kind of get into what we did in 2024. So in 2024, we launched a national voter registration drive, and it covered 7 battleground states, 12 competitive congressional districts, and we targeted 300,000 people. And you're probably sitting there thinking, well, Wendy, like you said that you do this part-time. Like, how is this even feasible? And I think that a lot of what I do kind of in the political work is what I do in my day job, which is think about channels and efforts that can scale and mostly scale through data and technology. So now I'll go into what we actually did. So we partnered with an organization called Civic Tech, which has that kind of layer of data of non-registered voters. And we created a direct mail package. This is the actual kind of insert that a prospective voter would receive. It's simple, it's easy, it's nonpartisan. Register to vote, your voice must be heard this year. Here's the deadline. If here and if you want to, you can do it online through a QR code. But inside that packet was also the official compliant voter registration form. And in some states, it's permissible to pre-fill in that information. So in the states that it was compliant, those forms were pre-filled in. So all the person had to do was sign and then place it into a self-addressed envelope that already had a stamp in it. So we just made it dead simple for people to register to vote. We gave them all the tools, all the information, and made this process less than 5 minutes. So after we sent out these voter registration packets to 300,000 people, we used peer-to-peer text to follow up with them 3 times. And this was a live human. So we would text them and essentially say, hey, you just received a voter registration packet in the mail. Do you have any questions? Can we help you with it in any way? And some people would reply back saying, thank you for the reminder. I'm going to do it. Some people would ask questions. So we would remind them to fill out the form with 3 text messages after the forms were sent out. So that is what we did. I will probably save questions until the end. So I'll keep going. So the results, we targeted roughly 300,000 people. 51,000 ended up registering to vote. That's roughly a 17% conversion rate. And then 34,000 ended up voting. That's roughly like a 67% turnout rate, which is higher than the national average. And then it was incredibly cost effective. So we hear about all this money being raised, like $2 billion and whatnot. And it's my belief that if we just shifted some of those dollars into getting people who are likely, who want to vote, registered and reminding them to vote, that would be a much more effective way to use some of the campaign dollars that I'm seeing raised. All right. At Rise, I would say, and you're saying, well, okay, you registered a whole bunch of people, but does this really matter? So I'm going to zoom in on 2 congressional districts where we did this work, CA 13 and CA 45, California 13, California 45. In California 13, we registered 702 people. 454 voted, and the margin of victory was 187. So, because these races are coming down to fractions of percentages, even if you go out and register 702 people, it does matter. And you can see the kind of same type of very slim margins in California 45, where we registered 804 folks and 549 voted. The margin of victory was 653. So this type of work can have real impact on the outcomes of races. Everything we do at Rise is measured and benchmarked against what is like best practice. And so site-based voter registration oftentimes is $1,500 per net vote. Canvassing is over $2,000 per net vote. Our program produce net votes at $124. So incredibly efficient and effective. Cost per net registration was roughly $100. Cost per net vote was $108. And the way that we do this is we have a holdout group. So we conduct a real RCT, and we have a holdout group to basically see what is the net impact of our initiatives. And we're doing it all again in 2026. So we're going to scale this process and expand the campaign and try to register and mobilize as many people in 36 most competitive districts for the 2026 midterms. And we're looking for folks who are interested in volunteering, in donating, in introducing us to funders. And that is all I have. And I will now pass it back to Liz.
Sorry, scrambling to get the buttons right. Oh my gosh, that was so powerful. Because we have a quick half hour, I don't know that we have a lot of time for questions. Are you able to stay on for our steering committee
Yes.
call? Okay. Um, so steering committee, you get your chance to talk to Wendy directly. Sorry, everyone else, but Wendy is so powerful. I've been communicating with others, like Mitzi's leading our Beyond the Ballot effort that we're doing. So I'm like, Mitzi, we've got to have Wendy do like one of our webinars or series there. So there'll be more that we'll be doing with Wendy. We want to support Wendy in her efforts. We want to amplify. And I'm just so amazed by less than 200 votes with that one stat with that congressman is just so amazing. And I think you're right about shifting resources towards getting people to vote, making it easier to vote. I love your model. So thank you so much for sharing. I so appreciate you, Wendy. All right, so I'm going to quickly go back to my slides and share some updates. And then I'm going to ask my colleagues to post in the chat box the links as I talk through. In a sec here, slideshow from current slide. Okay. Okay, so this is what I'm going to cover today. We can just keep moving along. So I wanted to share the final update. I got some questions from some folks. What were the final numbers? So went through and made sure I looked at the House and the Senate version and the final omnibus. So these are the final numbers in areas that we care about in women's health. There's probably more, but I think these are the gist of them. And so you might just want to do a screenshot of it. It's a lot to talk through and we don't have a lot of time. But I did want you to know I do have that final summary. So what I'll do is actually I'll include this next time I do a newsletter. So you don't have to worry about it. But that way, if you're trying to track for your organization or just know the latest, this is the summary. What are we doing for FY? Oops, that's supposed to say 27 requests. So we are working on requests for this year in these areas. So within Health and Human Services, we're working on this interdisciplinary fund where there'd be coordination across all 27 institutes and centers around women's health. Reimbursement parity. Thank you. Jocelyn Fitzgerald has been amazing. I've been going back and forth so much past several days to really finalize this language. I'm super excited, but we have some language on that. That we're working on, that we're submitting. Menopause Research Action Network. This was new last year, and so we are just building on that to keep that funding going and not have it just be a one-time thing. Menopause medical school education. So we're trying to insert language around if you're getting funding from the government for medical school, then you must include menopause in your curriculum. For FDA, we are working on Pilot X as a pilot program to streamline women's health innovations getting through FDA and to organize and coordinate all the stakeholders and have the right expertise in female biology on the team doing the evaluation. And then finally in defense, there's this Women Warfighter Readiness Program. It had a few million the last appropriations bill. So we're trying to increase that significantly in this one. And a lot of the focus is on like these injuries that are more common in women. So like ACL tears, ligament tears, for example, certain conditions more common in women, migraines, 3X in women. It's actually more common in anyone who serves in the military, but it's even worse for women. So I think that's like a really nice one. But there's different areas where if we can get more military funding on the R&D side, that'll lead to broader improvements for all women, so all people. So those are some of the efforts that we are working on. It's a frantic pace right now. My whole team is completely swamped in doing all these preparation forms because every office has their own form and their own deadline. Although they all decided to have deadlines this week and next week because the committee is requiring each member Congress to submit their priorities coming up very soon, mid March on. So there's a lot that we're doing right now to move that through. There's also a lot of talk about this conference coming up, the Health and Human Services Women's Health Conference. It's March 11th through 13th at the Omni Showroom. And that's the link. They are not accepting any more registrations, though. So hopefully you've already registered. There are co-sponsorship opportunities. And interestingly, I think we had talked about this before. Something was up there in the upper right corner, then it was taken down, and then we weren't sure what was happening. Well, they've now put it up front and center right in the middle. So they are looking for co-sponsors if people are interested in that. All that we know about the agenda is that there's 10 panels. They've said 1,000 have registered. There's 8 different agency folks that are going to be speaking. I've had some great conversations, a couple meetings now with some of the leadership for women's health at HHS who are really excited. They want this to be non-controversial, broad, women's health issues, really advancing research. She's particularly passionate about sex as a biological variable and getting that implemented more effectively across the board because it's not really happening. So I think there's lots we can do there. She's really interested in menopause, endometriosis, and some other key issues. So that'll be great. For women's health advocates at the conference, this came up on our FDA call. Thank you, Zena, chair extraordinaire. She's the only chair for that committee, and she does a great job. And we were talking about coordinating because she and I had coordinated on some of our work with the FDA request and talking to some FDA folks. And so what I think would be great is, first off, if you're going to the conference, and you can go to this tiny URL.com / Women's Health Advocates is the WHA DC March 12. So hopefully that's easy enough for you to write down, and hopefully my colleague can cut and paste that in the chat box. Fill that out if you want to do a meetup. We've been talking about this for a while. Life has just been crazy busy, but I wanted to at least get something up there. If you all want to try and do some kind of meetup on March 12th, we can try and do like either a happy hour thing or organize a dinner. Everyone kind of pays for themselves, but we all get to meet up, something like that. The other thing that's helpful is to know who's there so that we can team up. So while we're at the conference, of course, you want to represent your company, your nonprofit, your cause, number one. I completely get that. If there's also a chance, though, to say, I am part of Women's Health Advocates and we're in all 50 states, that is pretty amazing. That's a great way to elevate our organization and all of the work that we're doing. Also, we can team up for conversation. So a bunch of us will be there. So for example, if there's a bunch of us on the menopause committee, right, we could all 5 of us go up and talk to Dr. Oz or endometriosis, like whatever. If we know that each other is there and we can find each other and have a group conversation, that's going to be more memorable and impactful with that agency lead. And we'll all be on message for what we're trying to advocate for in Congress and with agencies. So really encourage that. And then finally, I'd love to do a debrief after the conference. So I think we'll probably need to set up a separate call because there's never enough time on these calls. So I'll probably aim for a quieter day, like a Friday or something, where we could all do like an hour-long Zoom and debrief and talk about what we want to do following that conference. So those are my thoughts for the Women's Health Conference. Some quick stats on us. We keep growing, which is great. Keep getting more letters, more followers. All this is great. One thing I wanted to call out first on the left side. So we had 950 new signups in just 90 days. So that's pretty amazing. So if we keep growing like that, we're going to have a huge impact. The second thing I want to comment on is politics and unsubscribers. So Sally Smita and I teamed up on a campaign to really highlight the importance of a particular race in North Carolina, where the incumbent Senate president twice had blocked breast cancer early detection legislation that would provide coverage for additional or supplemental screening beyond a mammogram, which is absolutely necessary for almost half of all women. They can't even see it. It's like looking for a snowball in a snowstorm. So you need to have that additional screening, which is like ultrasound, MRI, MBI, all the things that are on the market, all readily available. But twice he has blocked it. So it's passed the House, bipartisan, and every time he keeps blocking it. So in the Republican primary, Sam Page, who's the local sheriff, ran against him. And everyone kept saying it's impossible. He's the Senate president. He has so much funding, like all the lobbyists fund him. And well, get this one. The primary was yesterday, and they still haven't declared a winner. It is tied, and it's going to take weeks to do the count. And you know what? I really want to thank Sally, Smita, Vanessa, Tara, a lot of folks in this group really amplified this and made sure we got it out on social media. We communicated with our lists and really made sure that we had an impact. However, as a result, we got a lot of unsubscribers. And so I ask you to please resubscribe and please engage in advocacy and voting. That is how we make sure that women's health is a priority. So please resubscribe. We had a lot of unsubscribers tied to that. So that will keep going. Priorities. This is what we're working on. Good news, the SBI reauthorization bill passed the Senate. So all you that are doing women's health innovation and looking for those SBI grants, they should be back out soon. Should pass the House very soon. And the president's going to sign it. So that's fantastic news. A lot of these, I think I've already cut. We're going to work on more letters to post for you guys to send in. Right now, our big push is to send letters for the Endo and Adeno Hill Day. So if you haven't done that, please go to our link. And again, if one of my colleagues can post that, the link to how to send a letter, but it's right on the main page for womenshealthadvocates.org. Please get those letters in. It just takes 2 minutes to make a difference. The Illuminators event is coming together nicely. That's going to be May 20th, the day before our Capitol Hill Day, May 21, and we will get that registration link out soon. Okay, so that's it. We've got some state activity happening. Lisa McDonald is working on a possible New York State House Day on April 20th. That's really exciting. We had Massachusetts State House testimonies on menopause, thanks to Andrea Giancontrari, Kara Connell, many others really stepped up with that. There's other activities. I know Texas, other states are getting active, and that's wonderful. So just please communicate with us. So if we can support and put it in our newsletter, we certainly will. Political candidates. So we have a new system. We've got an online Google form for you to complete if you have a candidate that you think we should be endorsing. There's a bunch of questions to answer. You do have to do your homework before you submit, but that way we can start to figure out where we invest our time. So please take a look at that. Primaries. So they're kicking off. Obviously, Texas, Arkansas, and North Carolina were yesterday. More coming up later this spring. Massachusetts is not until September, but we'll be watching and tracking. These are key races that we're looking at. It's a slide I've shared before. Ways to get involved. We've got all these committees, health conditions committees. We've got regional committees. You can join the executive committee or the steering committee. There's our wonderful team, our events that we had in December, picture with Chair Susan Collins, Appropriations Committee. Thank you for being a change maker. I think we're way over time. Oh no, I'm over time by a minute. So thank you all for dialing in. I really appreciate you. We'll switch over to the steering committee call. So steering committee folks, if you don't have the link, of course, text me so I can make sure you have it. Thank you all for dialing in. Thank you for being a change maker, and we'll see you next month. Bye.